Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into something called social innovation. It's this really cool way of thinking about how we can tackle some of the world's biggest, thorniest problems. Think climate change, inequality, and come up with solutions that are genuinely new.
Let's just start with a really big question, right? How in the world do we even begin to solve problems as massive as these? Because, let's be honest, the usual approaches, top-down government policies, the free market, they've tried, but they haven't quite cut it. A lot of the time, they just end up propping up the old systems when what we really desperately need is a completely fresh perspective.
And that's exactly where social innovation comes into play. You see, at its heart, it's not just about inventing some new gadget or launching a new service. It's about ideas that do two things at once. They meet a real social need, and they forge new connections, new ways for people to work together.
Okay, hold on. So you're saying it's not just about the final outcome, but also how you get there?
You've hit the nail on the head. That's precisely it. It's social in its ends, meaning, the goal is good for society, but it's also social in its means. It actually makes us better at working together to solve things. It really is a double win.
So you might be wondering, okay, great idea, but how does it actually happen? Well, think of it like a journey. There's a whole process, and here are the 6 main stages. It all starts with a little spark of an idea, and if everything goes right, it can lead to massive system-wide change. For today, we're going to zoom in on a few of the really key parts: how you find that initial spark, how you actually make the idea happen, and then, crucially, how you make it stick around.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Every single one of these innovations starts with what's called a prompt. And a prompt isn't the solution, not at all. It's more like the trigger. It could be a crisis, a shocking statistic, or just a flash of insight that suddenly makes you see a need you never noticed before. It's what gets the ball rolling.
All right, I get the concept, but it still feels a little abstract. What does a prompt actually look like in the real world? How do you go from just seeing a problem to asking the kind of question that leads to a real solution?
That is the perfect question, and these examples are just fantastic illustrations. Take Curitiba in Brazil. The mayor there, Jaime Lerner, kept hearing complaints about parking, non-stop. But he realized something brilliant. The problem wasn't a lack of parking spots. The real problem was that public transportation was terrible. So he reframed the question. Or look at Seoul, where they had this ugly 2-tier motorway. Instead of seeing it as a traffic jam issue, they saw it as a buried river waiting to be brought back to life. And they did. And this last one is so cool: complaints choirs. They take all our little private frustrations and turn them into this big, public, creative performance. You see? It's all about framing the question in a new way. Get that right and you're already halfway there.
Okay, so you've got your prompt, you've reframed the question, and now you have this amazing idea. So what now? Well, you can't just leave it on paper. You've got to make it real, and that means prototyping. This is the stage where you take your idea out into the wild and see if it actually has legs.
And this part is absolutely critical. A lot of people think prototyping is just about finding out what's wrong with your idea. But it's so much more than that. It's really about learning by doing. While you're testing and tweaking, something amazing happens. You start bringing people on board. The people who will actually use it, the experts, the funders. You build this coalition. You work through the tough spots together, and you start to build some serious momentum.
So what you're saying is, it's totally okay if the first draft is a bit messy? Oh, it's not just okay, it's practically a requirement. The whole point of prototyping isn't to get it perfect on the first try. No way. It's all about progress. It's about getting something out there, learning from it fast, and changing it based on what you find out.
All right, so let's imagine you've prototyped your idea. People love it. It works. Awesome. But now you hit one of the biggest walls in this whole journey. How do you keep it going? How do you stop this great little project from just fizzling out?
Yeah, because let's face it, passion and a great idea will only get you so far. To really last, an innovation needs a solid backbone. Think of it like a building. It needs a strong foundation. That means a business model that actually works, a clear way of making decisions, and of course, a stable way to get funded. So that must mean picking the right kind of legal structure for your organization is super important, right? What are the options there? You're exactly right, and there are quite a few ways to go. This chart lays out some of the big ones. You've got your traditional charity, which is all about public benefit. Then there are cooperatives, which are owned by their members. And there's this really interesting newer model called a community interest company, or CIC, which is kind of a hybrid, mixing a social mission with the flexibility of a regular business.
And look, this isn't just theory. To give you some perspective, by the end of 2009, there were already over 3,000 of these community interest companies registered. So this is a real, tangible thing. It's a growing movement of organizations out there making a genuine difference.
Okay, so we've talked about the spark, about prototyping, about making it last, but now we get to the final destination, the ultimate goal. Because the true aim of social innovation isn't just to create one successful project. The real prize is systemic change.
And this really gets to the core of what we're talking about. Systemic change isn't just about putting a Band-Aid on a problem. It's about actually changing the system itself, the laws, the way businesses operate, even the way we all think that created the problem to begin with. The analogy I love is this. It's the difference between handing out food at a food bank and changing the system so that everyone has access to healthy, affordable food through things like community gardens and fair food policies. That is when a single idea can start to change everything.
So that really brings us back to you. We've walked through this whole journey, from finding that little spark of an idea to building something that can really last. These are the tools. So now I want you to think about your own world, your own community. What's that one frustrating problem that's just waiting for its social innovation?